All right. I'm at the Red House with Max Miller, a.k.a. Different.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having me.
For driving way down here.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. It was a pretty day. Yeah.
So I'm going to get the chance, I think, to really learn a lot about you, I suppose, in this, because we're meeting each other for the first time, and we haven't gone too far into just kind of getting into the early early stuff.
I tried to get into it, but you stopped me. I had to sit down in front of a mic, I guess.
Yeah, you know how it goes. I think I guess it kind of works out well because I guess those who aren't familiar with you will get the same opportunity to learn about you at the same rate that I will. So
Sweet.
Maybe that'll work out well.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So why don't we start with just what your relationship is with music at the moment?
Oh man, at the moment, so really my main thing right now is I'm the senior producer and educator for Notes for Notes. We build recording studios around the country for youth to use for free, and that's kind of my main 9-to-5 job in music, is working in a recording studio in High Point that we just finished maybe 2 months ago, and I spend my days there teaching the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s about being an artist and making music, from creating beats and writing lyrics to release and a little bit of music business and how to organize events and things like that. So I'm a musician myself and a producer myself. And, in that I also organize a couple of festivals in Greensboro. One of them is for Ace University, and the other is my own music festival called Little Big City Festival. And it's I kind of have my tentacles in a lot of different areas when it comes to music nowadays. So there's kind of a lot of opportunities that I just kind of say yes to.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's stay in the here and now for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So Notes for Notes, let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So you said that this program is available to kids for free. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's a nonprofit where we have studios around the country, from New York City to LA, and we've got just under 30 studios, I think, of kind of various sizes and shapes. And they're all staffed by producers like me. And a lot of them are in after-school program situations, like Boys and Girls Clubs and rec centers and things like that. So basically kids get out of school and have a free recording studio to go to. And we put out tons of songs, and we just actually finished a nationwide album that every studio kind of got one of their all-stars and submitted an original song, and they all got mixed and mastered, and that's getting pressed to vinyl and everything. And we have a bunch of really great partners and sponsors. We partner with Gibson, and we just finished a studio in partnership with Sony out in LA that's going to kind of focus on film scoring. And we partner with the Les Paul Foundation and Hot Topic and all sorts of awesome companies to help put these studios together. And of course, nice individuals who donate some money and things to basically provide, a place for kids to come and express themselves and learn how to express themselves, and sometimes get things off their chest that they don't get to, maybe at home or at school, or it's just kind of music is such a different medium than I think a lot of kids get exposed to regularly. So it's a nice place for them to come and, unwind and see what happens. Yeah.
That sounds pretty amazing.
It's pretty rewarding, and it's really cool to see and hear some of the stuff that the kids talk about. And, really, I've been working for them for, maybe about 4 or 5 years now. And it really just kind of put into perspective kind of how grown kids actually are. I feel like they think like adults and talk like adults. Maybe they don't have the experience maybe that adults do in life, but some of them do. And so it just kind of really provides them a chance to have their own voices heard when, like I said, maybe mom and dad don't listen in the same way, or a school counselor, maybe they're nervous about telling the counselor at school that they got into a fight because they don't want to get into another fight or something like that. This gives them a chance to come in and not only express themselves, but also get someone like myself to help them navigate what words they're putting on paper and what words they're putting out into the airwaves and things, and how to just be a little more creative sometimes in their word selection, rather than just dropping a bunch of F-bombs and things like that. So it's a pretty rewarding day, and probably one of the best jobs I've ever had outside of just playing music, I guess.
I mean, I imagine when I was in high school or middle school, like something like that would have meant the world to me and been an amazing thing to sandbox with, And you actually, I guess you answered one of my questions. It sounds like if they're dropping a bunch of F-bombs, I'm guessing that they kind of have creative liberty to actually really explore stuff without it being too confined.
Yeah, there's definitely them being in boys and girls clubs, and this one's in an actual like high school for the arts. There definitely are some boundaries that we try to adhere to, just so they don't get in trouble in any type of way with them being youth and stuff. But as far as like just censorship as a whole, we try not to censor them that much. Like I said, maybe kind of help them steer in a different direction when it comes to word choice. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can express adult themes or how you're feeling without necessarily saying it in one type of way. You can talk about maybe gang violence in your neighborhood without necessarily like glorifying it,
right?
And instead maybe talk about how to you it has affected you negatively, or it's affected a family member or something like that. So I mean, we try not to censor them as much as we can, really, and just try to, but still at the same time allowing them to use their voice in a good way. So they also own like 100% of the masters of all the music that they make in the studios. So they just get to come in, make it, have a producer there to help you, and then they walk out the door with finished product that they can do what they want with. We help them make music videos. We talk about, like I said, how to release your music properly, notes for notes themselves. I mean, we put every song up on SoundCloud just to get it out there. I mean, we have, I think, 2,500, 2,600 songs up on.
Holy hell, man!
Yeah, from over a decade of the company being open and studios all across the country. We definitely have quite the number of singles.
That's so wild. And so you said you've been with them for a couple years. So is this the kind of thing where, I guess, is each studio creatively sort of able to embrace whatever artistically seems to be flourishing in that particular area? Is it kind of uniform from studio to studio and city to city?
There's definitely some uniformities. I think it's mostly in the sense of what genres are popular nowadays. We don't have a whole lot of metal bands coming through, I suppose. We don't have a whole lot, but I mean, we do though. I recorded when I was working in Denver for the studio. We had a youth metal band called Astral Tomb, I think. And but yeah, I mean, in a lot of the areas that we do put studios in have certain demographics and economic situations and things. So we definitely probably most put out like hip hop, R&B, pop style songs. And then, we do have studios in Nashville, so there's some country singers in there. We had some good talent down in Atlanta for country as well. And I mean, it's really up to what the youth wants to do. I always encourage in my studios, like, try something different, try something that would be hard. Maybe you don't like it, but we can at least listen to it and learn something from whatever genre it is. If we've got a country singer who doesn't necessarily like hip hop, well, here's some things that we can take from hip hop that maybe relate to country, like storytelling. There's a lot of things that you can take from everywhere. So, we do put out, as much as we can, that's able to be put out. And so whatever genre that might take or whatever form that takes. I mean, we've got studios that do music for video games. We have studios that do nothing but podcasting kind of thing. And all the studios are pretty set up to pretty much do anything you want. They all have drum kits and guitars and keyboards, and they've all got laptops and MPCs, and they've all got, you know, a mixing board and vocal booths. And so it's kind of, it's one of those things where, like, as a musician, when you open the door and you've never seen one like that, you know, for youth to use for free, you're kind of like, I wish I would have had this.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the unofficial motto of Notes for Notes staff is, I wish I would have had this when I was like 12.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's just a playground in there. So, yeah, we put out a ton of stuff.
Yeah, my first recording experiences were like paying a dude, either paying a dude like, you know, $100 an hour to just go play acoustic guitar, you know, in a room like this, like a home studio, probably a smaller room, maybe like some of the first ones I did were up in a little town north of here, like in the hills, and it was just in a barn, like a hippie's barn with rugs everywhere.
Yeah.
And then other times it would be like my bassist just got a interface and it's a 2-channel, and he's like, "Hey man, I can record you," and you get them back, and they just sound like hiss and thin recordings, but you're like, "Wow, I got recorded," you know?
Yeah.
That's what it was like. So yeah, imagining. Especially being like 19 and you're just a budding artist, or whatever, or I guess in this case, like being 15, 16 and having that space and some guidance to not make horrible stuff. I would imagine that artistically is super developmental for these kids as well.
Yeah, I think, definitely lots of social emotional learning is what we're calling it. I mean, it's what it's called. And it is very like fundamentally, it develops the kids into, you know, what we'd like to think is great adults, great young adults. I mean, the program that we have in High Point, it goes from 6th grade to 12th grade. And so having for 6 years, every day, Monday through Friday, coming into a 2,000 square foot studio where we run Pro Tools and Ableton and have 10 different rooms you can all track from, you know, and then putting your voice and your skills or, you know, your instrument talents into the computer, getting it mixed and produced, and then hearing it come back out at yourself. Yeah, really can do wonders for some kids. I mean, you know, especially where you might not be successful in other areas, you know what I mean? Like the arts are getting cut out of so many schools and in so many places, as many of us know. And, you know, to have something that's brand spanking new, that's industry standard, absolutely, to use for 6 years, and like it builds a lot of positive energy in them.
So yeah, hearing that you've got this going on out there, I know Stephen Price is out in High Point, who's like a very good recording engineer.
I've heard that name before.
And then Guilford Tech is out there with their program. I mean, is High Point kind of got a significant recording engineering community developing out there?
I don't think yet, but I think developing. It really does seem like it. I know that, and I think just kind of, and I could be wrong, but you know, I've only been here for a couple years, so could be the outsider in me, but. You know, out of Winston, Salem, and Greensboro, and High Point, the triad, you know, I kind of feel like maybe High Point kind of gets the least attention.
Oh, sure.
And okay, cool. And so I think these things aren't the only things that are happening in High Point. I think High Point in general, arts-wise especially, is actually growing to not be some kind of competitor to Winston-Salem and Greensboro, but kind of its own thing. I mean, they've got furniture market that goes on there, but you know, outside of that, there's this whole other 10 months out of the year that, you know, they'd like to have some stuff happening. And, you know, so I just toured something called the Cohab, I think it was, which is, I think they're some furniture folks, but they're open to venue. And they've already had like Ghostland Observatory perform there or something like that. And I mean, they've got like a great music scene going on, like just within that venue. And then with us coming in to the school and us starting to hold events there at that studio, and like you said, GTCC having stuff going on, it just really seems like High Point's, you know, if they were ready or not, I mean, it seems like there's stuff happening, there's stuff growing. So I'm excited to see what the next 5 years, you know, I've only been here for 2 maybe, so you know, I'm excited to see what the next 2 years looks like. And then after that.
I think your observation is right. I mean, I think Winston. I guess with School of the Arts and Winston being the city that calls itself the city of arts, and then the city of arts and innovation. I think Winston-Salem has been perceived as a place that at least was supposed to have a different kind of art scene, and there's a lot of local mixed feelings about that, about what that means, about what that should mean, what it could mean. So setting that aside, I mean, I think of Greensboro as a place that definitely has, a young population and like people doing sort of garage shows and basement shows and like a really organic scene or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of the musicians I've known out there have just been, they're just, I get the sense that there's a real community out there. High Point, yeah, being a part of the community that I think gets totally forgotten about, and I think partially because of the whole furniture market thing. Like High Point's thought of as just that's that's what they do.
They got chairs.
Yeah, they got hella chairs. Yeah, and they specialize in that. And I mean, when I was 19, we used to go play some rough bars out in High Point.
Yeah,
and there were people out there, but like God, the bars I used to play at were a different beast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and so I'm originally from Austin, Texas, which, in some way when I was growing up there used to be kind of a small city, very Greensboro-like, very, very much. I felt like, coming from I can totally see Greensboro turning into an Austin kind of vibe for sure. But I think with that, all the areas around Austin get kind of consumed as the city grows in a way. All these other cities kind of start becoming part of this big conglomerate where it's no longer Austin and San Antonio. It's kind of just this one big long stretch of stuff happening. And I can see probably something similar like that happening to the whole triad where, more and more, it's not going to feel like a 30-minute drive from Winston to Greensboro or from High Point to Winston or something like that. Like those, I think they're going to just start growing together just as more and more people start moving to this kind of area. Because I could totally see that happening. I mean, shoot, I did. But, so I think that I think High Point, bringing these things to High Point and getting out of we've got chaise lounges. I mean, and that might not be exactly what their thinking is, but having these things to do, like I said, won't necessarily be like competition, but it'll provide stimulation to the area. It'll I think over time just keep improving isn't necessarily the right word, but I don't know, just kind of keep growing culturally and stuff. I mean, if what used to be out here was just kind of dark, dank bars or something like that, or just kind of rough, sketchy areas or something, I think over time those rough, sketchy areas, they could stay rough, sketchy areas, but people will go to do stuff because there's cool stuff to do there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at least that's how I would see it.
Before we carry on, I just realized that I didn't ask you if you wanted like cream or sugar or anything for your coffee.
Oh, I'm actually great. This is exactly what I need. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, so I will mention that I absolutely love Texas. I love the Austin, San Antonio area. I thought about moving there for a time, and I often just romanticize the idea of what if I had and what would life have been like. Kind of wish I did, but plenty of good things have happened nonetheless.
Sure.
Since I didn't and haven't stayed here. But I might, maybe we'll talk about Texas a little bit. But I'm wondering, as an outsider, or as an outsider, you know what I mean, as a new person here who's kind of newer to the community, what is your perception of Winston from the outside? Have you spent much time down here?
Yeah, I've definitely. I've been to like a couple shows out here, the Ramcat, right? There's an arcade here that I came to a couple of times because there's free pinball on Wednesdays.
Was it Monstercade?
I'm a huge nerd. It's
what's the other one called? Reboot.
That's the one. I don't know if they're still doing the Wednesday thing. My bad. Yeah, definitely, I came out to, is the quarry out here, the kind of playground with the big overlook thing. And,
Yep.
yeah, so I've spent some time in Winston and as an outsider. I mean, it seems like each one of the cities in the triad kind of has its own identity, I suppose. And I think that Winston kind of has its own identity now. And I mean, calling it the what did you say?
City of Arts and Innovation.
Yeah, I haven't spent that much time here to, comment on that part of it. But, I mean, it seems like it's got stuff going on as well. The thing that kind of, I guess I just don't hear a lot about it. Living in Greensboro, I don't hear a lot about stuff happening in Winston-Salem from where I am. And it could be vice versa. I don't know. It could be, I don't know how much you hear about stuff happening in Greensboro or High Point, living in Winston. But
Yeah, not as much. Not nearly as much.
Excuse me. And I think, maybe I am always more for communication and networking and stuff like that when it comes to, especially like as a city, getting more people involved in the stuff that you have going on, reaching out and getting the people to come out. I don't know. I mean, I've heard stories of Winston-Salem, like friends living here for years and stuff. And, they moved to Greensboro. So whatever that says.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I have, in the time that I've lived here, have a lot of friends who still live there. Like in the 2 years that I've been here, I feel like the people that I know, most of them have moved away from Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of that situation is like, but yeah. There's stuff happening. I don't know. I've enjoyed it when I've come.
There's bound to be. My impression there's definitely a cultural difference. I think that is very noticeable between Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and High Point. I can't even speak to much anymore. And I went to Guilford Tech out there,
cool.
and enjoyed that. But that was kind of my only little glimpse into what High Point at least looked like from a corner of High Point.
Sure,
but
sure.
Never really immersing myself in the community. Greensboro and Winston. I feel like Winston is tries to be the Instagram sort of presentation of the southern city. It's picturesque and it looks kind of thought through. Whereas I feel like Greensboro is a little more real in a way. And that's not to cast any negative vibes on my community, because I really like the Winston-Salem community. But being from here, I mean, I've had plenty of conversations on this little show that are sort of at least a critique of what it means to try to be an arts community down here.
Okay.
And obviously we're an arts community where cost of living is pretty damn affordable, and that means that people typically probably aren't spending a shit ton of money on the arts. They're probably not spending a shit ton of their money all the time
on stuff.
They're probably chilling a little. So anyway, the point being that as a working artist, Winston can be hard because there's not a ton of clubs, there's not a ton of shows to play, and there's not a ton of patrons for the art. But
Gotcha.
It's a quaint, calm community where a lot of artists at least live and can live cheaply. And I think for musicians, we can leave Winston, we can go play on the road and come back to live in this affordable community. Greensboro, I feel like there's just from the little bit of time I've spent there, it seems like there's more of an insulated thing. It seems like there's more, like I was saying, those early musicians I knew, it seemed like they had more community around them for the thing that they did. And if we played in Greensboro, it was very common for us to, after go playing a show, go to somebody's house and a bunch of people be there and a bunch of people be playing music, which didn't really happen here as much.
That is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I have now at this point spent the most time in Greensboro living there and everything. And, it does seem, I mean, to me, it feels in Greensboro curated as well. Maybe kind of like you're saying about the kind of aesthetic or vibe of Winston-Salem. It does feel put together on purpose, but I think that's because maybe there could just be more of an emphasis on the young population, the younger, more fun, vibrant vibe or something like that. I'm not sure. There's definitely a couple of names that I've heard tossed around who are like actively, sprucing things up for good or bad, areas and things, and trying to incorporate more of what you might see in other larger cities in a city like Greensboro. Okay. And that's really why I named my music festival what I did, Little Big City, because it feels like the city of Greensboro is just ramping up and aiming towards being like a large city that's right in between Charlotte and Raleigh, that is right in the middle of the East Coast. It's like right in the middle of the state. You drive the same amount of time to get to the mountains or the beach, kind of thing. And I mean, I'm sure you feel those things in Winston, but it does. I mean, it feels curated on purpose, but maybe it happens a little more. It could, and I could be wrong, but maybe it does happen a little more kind of organically in Greensboro. I mean, there's plenty to do that revolve around the arts. Like tons of stuff to do. It seems like revolve around the arts. Every weekend there's community theater. Greensboro's putting on some play, or there's some little festival at a park somewhere, or there's definitely shows going on. Most nights of the week. And it's not like in Austin. Oh geez, in Austin it was every night of the week. Any time of day almost, you could go out and find live music in most parts of the city. It wasn't necessarily like, I feel like Greensboro is a little more burrowed. There's definitely like areas that stuff is happening, and kind of outside of that, maybe it's a little more sparse. But I'm just growing up in a city like Austin, where you could go to South Austin and do stuff. You could go to West Austin and do stuff, East Austin and do stuff like there. And it revolved around the arts. It revolved around live music in particular. There's always live music. You could throw a stick and hit a musician. And, so coming from that and living in Greensboro, it feels like that's kind of, maybe not the live music thing, but that's what they're aiming to achieve in the city, is like, we want a vibrant kind of hip, type of city for more and more young people to move to, because I definitely know a lot of people. I'm kind of one of the older ones in the friend group now, and it seems like a lot of people graduate college and stay. At least from my perspective, I know a lot of people who are college graduates from like A&T or UNCG who stay in the area to do things. So, and you could have a different experience with that, but
yeah, it's very not like that in Winston, and that's it's weird, and maybe it's different for different schools. Like, I don't think I have this conversation pertaining to Salem or to Winston-Salem State or the Piedmont, or like what was the Bible college in town. I don't really have conversations about those three, and I think it's because the ones with the brightest sort of spotlight on them would be Wake Forest and UNCSA.
Sure. Yep.
UNCSA and Wake Forest both, they just train kids up, and those kids like immediately leave and go to New York or like UNCSA, they all go to New York or LA trying to, do that thing. And Wake Forest, obviously, they go anywhere and everywhere. And I think and also, those kids aren't really a part of the community while they're here, and that's kind of a bummer. And when I think about like UNCG, when we used to go play and be around Spring Garden or whatever, Tate Street or whatever it was out there, it was really common for us to kind of be coexisting with UNCG kids, and it was very clear that we were sharing the city, or that end of the city, with them and with like locals. Whereas in Winston, those kids, they've got their own little tiny micro worlds that they can exist in. They don't ever have to come downtown and be a part of the Winston-Salem community. So it kind of stands to reason. I think they're trying to change that a little bit now with this neighborhood that's called Innovation Corridor in Winston, where Bailey Park is. They're trying to build up sort of a part of downtown that it almost feels like what they've done is Wake Forest has sort of tried to start sinking their claws into more of the downtown in a way that makes it really easy for Wake Forest kids to graduate from Wake Forest or even start working in the city while they're still attending Wake Forest.
Gotcha.
And then just kind of transition into the Wake Forest branded part of downtown.
Okay.
Still keeping those kids from really just jumping into being a part of the Winston-Salem community that's already here, which is
Right.
probably, if anybody were to hear this, why all of us resent all this like Deke Town bullshit that's going on. That like Wake Forest is putting these dumpsters and signs and different things around the city that say Deke Town, as if it's like Winston-Salem
this is our
takes
city.
pride in Wake Forest, and we're like, fucking no, we don't.
Yeah.
Like, this
That's
is
like High Point. That's like High Point University. Sorry,
Yeah.
High Point University. But yeah, that's a lot like you see High Point University stuff everywhere around High Point. It's just like a purple city, and it's really interesting to me because look, in Austin, it was the University of Texas, huge university, like Wake Forest, huge university, but it really didn't though feel like there was Longhorn stuff everywhere. Like it never, I mean, sure on campus and, you know, a couple of blocks around that maybe, but yeah, there wasn't like burnt orange buildings and stuff like that. I mean, well, I guess they're all made out of like red brick, but yeah, you know, and that maybe that has something to do with, like you said, like there may be some resentment and people from the area who are like, God, there's shit's everywhere. Like, I just got to get out of here. Man. They're everywhere.
It makes me wonder if the independent arts communities are kind of like natural enemies with the higher education communities.
Oh, bro, let me tell you, bro. I totally see. So I am a teacher in a school, right? I'm a teacher in a school, and I don't have a college education. I don't have a teaching certificate. I like did the rock and roll. I dropped out of college, kids, and pursued music. And that's what I did. And now I'm a professional musician, kids. And there's such a huge education community out here. Like there's colleges everywhere. And at least, you know, and I mean, I guess now that I'm in the education system, I just see just education things all over, like a big culture around education, higher education. And the way that I get side-eyed, or, you know, someone just kind of like, you know, scoffs at me or something like that when I say I dropped out of college to pursue music, I'm like already like down, you know, 10 notches from where they are because I didn't finish. I didn't get my paper. And, you know, meanwhile, we're really on the same level. I mean, or I'd like to think so. You know what I mean? Like someone can totally be educated person without going to college. I know plenty of musicians who are extremely talented who didn't go to school for it. But yeah, it definitely seems like there's this kind of upturned nose at anything that isn't, you know, classical, anything that isn't kind of folk or blues or jazz, or like there's like a handful of genres that you have to be successful in some way. And if you're not those, then and if you're just like an independent artist or something like that, that's also like, well, you're not really doing anything or something like that. It just, that's the vibe that I've gotten from that in particular.
I hear you. And I should not to offer any street cred, but I should mention I didn't finish GTCC. I also
There you go.
left prematurely, and and I'm with you entirely. And it's funny. I'm not trying to suggest in saying this that there's like a superiority to either side of the coin, but what I notice about thinking about this is that independent musicians are often self-taught. They are skilled in teaching themselves things. And in that weird roundabout way, very skilled in teaching, you know, understanding how teaching and learning might work because of having done it on an individual level.
Right.
Whereas there are definitely some people who I think would swear by the importance of a systematic sort of approach to these things. And systems are cool, and like systems of organization are definitely cool, but
it can be beneficial to a lot of people.
Definitely can be, but there's an implication there that I find interesting, and I don't know, like we might end up in strange territory talking about this. Maybe your Texas side will agree, maybe your Austin side won't. I don't know, but what I'm also thinking about a little bit is like maybe the tendency people have to give that level of authority to something like the state, you know what I mean? And be like, if
I
it
see what you're saying.
isn't state issued
Yeah.
education,
Yeah.
then it's not real education kind
Right.
of thing. Which
Yeah.
is like, well, maybe that's not always true.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there's, there's was it 1,000 ways to skin a cat or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, there's, if the end goal is you being good at what you do, if it's a system that gets you there, great. If it's you just sitting in front of YouTube for a couple hours at a time, great. Like, we shouldn't, either side of it shouldn't be discounted because of the way they took to get to where they're at. I mean, one of my good friends now, a few of my good friends now, actually, like most of the people that I know out here that I call my friends are teachers also, because that's kind of why I moved out here, was to take the job. So I'm working in the school, all my like work friends and stuff. And outside of that, friends tend to be also teachers of some kind. And, and most of them, or in a few of them at least, it was this, they've been on this kind of journey of like rediscovery or like self-actualization, when they spent all of this time, nearly a decade, getting a couple of degrees and a teaching certificate, come to find that they just have more fun when they make their own music and not play a 200-year-old piece of classical or something like that. And being the, rock and roll kind of guy, I'm like, yeah, that's great. Do more of that. Like, do more of that self-exploration. Do more of that, like, original music. Do that, because I think that is much healthier to you as a person than it is to learn the standards and that's it, and play the standards and that's it. And, okay, sure, we're improvising over standard pieces of music. That is, I think, to me, it's like, and I've been talking with some of my friends about this too, it's like, how many cover songs should you learn? Because I think that's kind of where some of our conversations have been lately, because it's in that kind of realm of like, do you go the systematic way and like going to school, learning covers? Or do you do it where you don't go to school, you don't learn the covers, and you just learn yourself? You write original music, you just do it how you want to do it. I kind of got to a point where I'm like, I think it should be kind of like an 80-20 to original music, 80%, and 20% covers. I think that's a really good spot. I think you should learn a couple of covers. I think you should learn a couple classical pieces of music, or a few opera pieces, or whatever it is you might be doing. I think you should start with that, because that can give you that kind of foundation of dexterity on an instrument or song structure in the process of doing it. But I think you just kind of get to a certain point where, I don't really want to be a jam band. I don't want to be a cover band. I want to, be me. I want to sing my own words, whether people like them or not. And that could just be like, individual mentality. But I think those kind of conversations are in the same realm of like, learn a little music theory, but also like, don't learn so much music theory that it takes you way too long to put a piece of music together. Like, if you can just sit down and write a thing, shit, if it sounds good, it sounds good. Toss the book out the window. Like, oh, but you're in this kind of mode and you're playing this specific kind of thing. Oh, and you did a key change. Okay, that's thanks for explaining it to me, because now I can tell other people, sound like I know what I'm talking about. But I don't know. It's a really interesting conversation that kind of.
Yes, it is.
How much school, how much covers, how much should you learn of other people's stuff?
Yeah.
Before you kind of become your own artist. And that's also like, so much of what we do is artist development, and like the notes for notes stuff. And even, just shoot, personally as an artist, like that kind of like, be you in the music that you play. Yeah. Do a cover, do it in a different genre at least. Let's do the Nelly song as like, reggaeton or something like that. Like, let's do something different. Yeah.
Thing about what you're touching on, is an important part of the, that's like a part of the learning relationship with music, whatever. And not only, one thing that crossed my mind while you were talking about it is that, you know, these people that are studied in classical music or in old time music or whatever came from an originator, came from an original creator, somebody who was doing what you're talking about
Sure,
and
sure.
pursuing one's own vision and not just recreating things. But another thing that crossed my mind is that we spend a good 16, 20 years consuming music before we ever really start to make it.
Sure.
You know, so like whatever. So it might be that there's a hard line between if you're sitting there reading in a textbook, you know, the history of some piece of music and knowing the notes that are on the piece of paper that tell you how to recreate that piece of music. It could be that there's a hard line between that and listening to the radio and hearing a song and having a sense of how it functions. But I kind of subscribe to the idea that there's not a clear line between those two things. That like being familiar and mastering the sound of music or whatever is done in a lot of different ways. And
Right.
done throughout our whole lives.
Right,
you
right.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that kind of thing of who was it? Victor Wooten said that you learn how to say milk before you learn how to spell it. And so kind of when it comes to music education, it's that same sort of vibe. I mean, you're absolutely right. You spend, you know, more time listening to music than you do making it for a certain period of time. I mean, shoot, even now I probably listen to more music than I make nowadays too. I mean, there's almost always music on. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that there is like a clear line of like when you should read the book versus when you should just listen to the song. But I do believe that there is like an inherent understanding of music in all people. Everyone knows how to play an air guitar at least, you know, and you may have never even played a real guitar ever before. Tons of people sing in the shower or in the car to the radio, whether you can sing or not. And I think that there is just some, and for everybody it could be different, but there's just a switch that, you know, has to get flipped, I think, and most people to kind of switch between that consuming and understanding into like being an original creator and stuff like that. And I tell the kids all the time, like, you're not about to make a Grammy, like Grammy winning song right now. Let me just put that, you know, you're 13, this is your first song ever. It's gonna be okay. Like if it's good or bad, it's gonna be fine. But what I think that, you know, I think that kind of process of being bad, you know, quote unquote bad for just a period, you know, for however long it takes you to be good is really important.
Oh, yeah.
It's really, really important to finish a song, whether it's good or bad, finish the song. And that's that. So then you can listen to your song and take your notes and get better. I probably listen to, I mean, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I probably listen to my own music more than I listen to anybody else's music.
Yeah,
because
I'm
I'm just
way.
always analyzing, like, you know, and it gets to a point where it's like, you know, I'm being way too critical. Like, I should have
Sorry,
put a
she's
different,
distracting
you're
you.
good.
Marble, hey, Marble.
Thank you so much.
Marb, hey, go lay down.
you.
Go lay down. Go lay down.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I tend to get overcritical at times, though. Of course, you know, you listen to the same song 1,000 times, you're going to notice all the little, you know, inconsistencies here and there. I wish I enunciated that word just a little different or put a different amount of energy into that one sentence or whatever it might be. But yeah, you know, I think that that period of just, like, I mean, it's for like, I mean, what craft is that not for? I mean, you build a terrible looking birdhouse before you can build like a house. You know what I mean? And you do it for all of it. I don't know how many times I like burnt food before I realized like, oh, I just shouldn't cook it so long. So yeah, you know, it's hopefully all of y'all youngins out there and people who feel like you're just playing covers nonstop, you know, it's okay to be bad. It's like, that's so important just to suck for a little bit.
Yeah, and that is indeed true for everything. You know, you think about how we learn sports when we start at a young age and how stupid, you know, like how stupid we might feel trying to navigate that. And like, we don't know, like looking back, I just remember old footage and stuff of basketball games and like the things I would do to like not admit that I didn't know the rules and stuff,
Yeah.
And then like over
It was
time,
never your fault.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Also, by the way, very truthful thing that you just mentioned that I know other musicians relate to that seldom gets talked about, but the whole listening to one's own music thing, like on repeat, like that is
Yeah.
a heavy. That is something I definitely do when I'm sort of studying whether this thing is done or whatever.
Right.
I was just reading about this in Rick Rubin's book about demos and stuff, and it made me think about it differently. It made me think that maybe I should either record demos more simply or listen to them a little less so that I don't get too, because what I find is when I do that process and listen to one like 1,000 times in a day, I will fall in love with it and not want to recreate it or whatever, or sometimes not even want to add to it or whatever. But anyway, apparently this is a pretty common occurrence among musicians that,
Just listening to your own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope so, because that just makes sense. I mean, it's like sitting in the gym shooting free throws for an hour or whatever, Yep. Yeah, it's the same motion over and over again. But also it's true, like if you're practicing bad shooting form at the same time, then you're just reinforcing, you not wanting to go back and retrack that baseline.
Strengthening the habit. Yep.
Yeah. So, we'll never be able to put a number on how many times you should listen to it, but there is something though in action, you know what I mean? Just like finish the song. Like that's the producer's curse that I've known so many people who have catalogs. I'm guilty of it. I don't know how many beats I just have in my Google Drive sitting there never to see the light of day because I just won't finish it. And there just is something in like the action of like, you know what, whatever, it's done. Let's just call it done. It's all my friends like it where it's at. So cool, whatever. Maybe that's what it is. Like maybe, if I need to have like a focus group, listen to all my songs instead of me doing it so much.
Every time I've finished a project, I've never after the fact been like, if I would have just spent like another few months or whatever, or another few weeks, like I've never looked back and been like, it wasn't done. I finished it prematurely. It's
that's good.
Once it was done, I was always able to accept the condition that it was in.
See, I learned that the hard way. I learned by releasing music and with regrets, like in the process, you know what I mean? Like, damn, like he asked me if I wanted to take those vocals again, and I said, no, it's fine. And, or I don't know how many times, you say, oh, that's not bad, but not bad also means not good. And, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's, I have released music with like, that to me was unfinished and stuff like that. And then I look back and I'm like, damn, well, I guess I got to learn my lesson and just, try to do it right the first time, or, just retrack the thing, just cut that one little twang out of that guitar and or whatever.
There's a doing it right the first time mentality thing that does exist. That is, I've noticed it with some of my Songfinch stuff. I do Songfinch. Do you know Songfinch?
Is that where you like someone wants a song about something?
Yeah. And it's not, it's weird to do that as an original artist doing commission stuff, because it's interesting, because in visual art, commission stuff, I feel like visual art is treated more like a skill, and it's more normal to do commission stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas music,
I can see that. It's
a little less welcome.
Unless you're like in the industry as a songwriter.
Yeah, and that's what you specialize in.
Yeah.
I think other artists look at artists who do Songfinch with a little bit of like a, like a weird idea about it. Yeah, like it's illegitimate.
This isn't real art.
So whatever. I do that occasionally, and I've noticed that when I kind of focus my mind going into a recording session, because it is a little painful to record those songs for the reason that I just laid out. Like, it's not enjoyable in the same way that recording my shit is.
Sure.
It's a little more mentally taxing. And what I have to tell myself sometimes is, okay, if you try to get it right in the first couple takes, you won't have to do this for an hour. You can just do this for like 10 minutes. Just get it right the first time through. And so I do that, and it changes the way that I do it for some reason. Instead of this sort of exploratory, like discovering as I go sort of approach to recording, it's more like down to business, get the notes right, nail it, and fucking try to nail it.
Yeah. I have a similar mentality sometimes. I think mostly when I'm coming into or I'm starting a session or something already with an idea. And I guess like Songfinch, I mean, they provide you like, oh, it's my husband's birthday or something like that? Or do they like send you fully blown, like laid out lyrics or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a submission form that a person fills out, and
Got
you
you.
build the story out of it.
Okay, so yeah, there's definitely some creative work to be done on your part, but it's not even necessarily for you as an artist.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There is something to say about doing it right the first time. I mean, that's what we try to kind of, in a way, instill in the students in my program at the studio is like, let's pretend like the studio's not free. Let's pretend, I mean, you've got a home set up, but let's pretend like you and your band just reserved the studio with an engineer and a producer for 8 hours, or for 1 hour because it's class, for an hour. So you got to come in prepared, and you got to come in practiced and stuff. And, I kind of preached on it a little bit not too long ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago. We've got this like jam club that happens after school. And they were coming in for a few weeks, just jamming, making up stuff. And that was cool for a while. And I was like, you know what, guys, like, let's have some output. I want y'all to write some songs. Let's do the thing. And so they wrote a song, and, for a first song, it was like all of their first kind of original. That's where the territory they're in right now. And it was cool. Like, sounds good. Yep, first song. So tomorrow, or next week when y'all come in, we're gonna put headphones on y'all with the click track. We're gonna just get like some scratch tracks going, so we can just get the idea down, and we'll come back to it later. They came in the next time, and like the structure wasn't set necessarily, like that, because every time we did a scratch track, they played it slightly different. Like this section of song was a little longer this time, and it was a little shorter the second time, and it was the right amount of length the third time. And also the way that they were having trouble just playing to a click, as probably lots of beginners should. But yeah, having trouble staying in time and stuff like that, even though it's their song. And so after that day, I'm like, so this is why we come in prepared, because we just spent $500 in the studio, and y'all didn't really get what you wanted to get. So coming in prepared, practice and rehearsal are two different things, type of thing. Like practice you do at home, and then you show up to rehearse. We shouldn't be discussing the structure of a song when it's time to record the song. At least in in that kind of environment where you're like renting the studio. Now, if you have a free studio that you're coming to tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, there's much more like lax in that. Like, I'll just track it tomorrow, or I'll just track it on Friday or something like that. But yeah, it's a huge skill, I think, to, like you say, just kind of zone in, come prepared, know the bass line, know the drum fill, and nail it. It might take you 2 or 3 times, but that's that. But
At least try to nail it.
yeah, I think so. I think try to nail it. And if dude, nowadays music is so accessible nowadays. Creating music is so accessible now that, it's for me, and I don't know how it goes for you, but, half the time I like to think I'm pretty quick at putting a song together. Like, okay, I'm just feeling creative. Let me just beep and boop some things out and see what comes out of me. Half the time it's garbage, and the other half is like, okay, I might could use this. But what does happen though is if I'm sitting there in my non-educated self trying to play some chord progression on piano or something, and it's kind of like, and then it's like, no, I'm doing it for 30 minutes, and then I'm doing it for an hour and I'm not getting it right, and then I'm doing it for 2 hours and I'm still not getting it right what I want. Then I'm just like frustrated and like, okay, this is boo-boo. I quit music forever. I suck. Stupid music. So yeah, I mean, there should be room for error. Sometimes I don't give myself that, but it is nice to be able to like knock it out.
You're at a studio that is making music very accessible to kids. I mean, I imagine you have a positive perspective on this, but I'm wondering, as a creative, also, like, I don't even know how old you are. Are you How old are you?
32.
Damn, we're like a year apart.
Nice.
Okay, so hell yeah, early 30s
Early
club.
30s.
So I don't know, like I will admit in my early 30s, coming from the time period that we both did, I think where we both were able to observe going from probably being teenagers, it was all about live performance. Then like slowly there was a shift into where you could buy equipment and you could record at home. Crazy quick technology changes that
Yeah.
changed the industry. And then
The
streaming,
world.
not to mention streaming
Yeah,
and Spotify
yeah.
and all this, like
CDs.
CDs,
Tapes.
yeah, all this shit
Who?
just changed in the span of our careers so
Right.
far as musicians. And for me, there have been times where I've had a at least a frustrated view of all of that because it went from kind of like what I've heard this said about podcasting too recently by somebody, I don't remember who, but it's just the floodgates opened at some point and the barrier to entry changed significantly, and now pursuing music is a different thing than I think what we might have both imagined when we were in our late teens or mid-teens or whatever. Have you ever, I don't know, have you had the same mixed feelings about whether that was like a net gain or loss?
In different areas, yeah, I suppose. Like personally, as a musician, I was like, this is great. I can just do it with a laptop and a MIDI controller. I can go get a cup of coffee and make a song, like not at home, not in the garage, not at the studio. That was, I think, to me, really great. Because I also got to a point where I was doing it outside of like having a band and stuff like that. So
Right.
like me being able to just like be at home with my computer and my keyboard and do everything I needed to do, that was great. I do think that there's a couple things that have taken a hit though. And like you said, you know, lowering like those floodgates opening and it being so accessible, I feel like has kind of flooded all music with just, you know, everybody and their cousin is making music now. And so, you know, I've heard people say like good music is dead and real music is dying. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's just buried. I think it's like, so it's just this sunken treasure ship beneath the waves of artists that are out there now. That was beautiful. And, yeah, so, you know, I think that there's a lot of people making music now. And so I think, you know, that kind of like, oh, well, I miss, you know, real music is dead isn't necessarily the case. I also think, you know, for me personally as well, I suppose the thing that's taken the hit is like the camaraderie of creating music. Because I feel like it used to be this thing where you needed other people. And in that needing other people to be around to help you make music, you know, that's some of the best memories I have are me and my band in the garage, no recording equipment, like no laptops or anything, like just like writing and creating and, you know, getting too drunk as not someone who could drink and, you know, and just having a good time. And, you know, I think that still happens, but I think in my personal journey, that definitely went away. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Then I discovered I could do it all on my own by myself whenever I want. Who needs the whole band? We got to schedule each other. We got to, but then, you know, the drummer can't make it or something. Yeah. So I think there's some things here and there. It's pros and cons for me, I think. I make music all the time by myself now, but also I think in missing some of that camaraderie, I like doing, you know, collabs, and I like just, that's what's nice about working with the kids really is like, there's just always other people making music around me, which is really nice for however good or bad it might be. You know, it definitely keeps those creative juices, you know, flowing throughout the day. And I'm a little tired of creating at the end of the day sometimes, you know, so I don't always come home and like sit down and make my own music. And I was telling you earlier, I have not made my own music in years, it feels like. And even if I was, it wasn't anything that I wanted to put out kind of thing. I was just, because I was making music for other people from 9 to 5. And then what, I'm going to go home and, you know, make all my, I'd rather sit and play a video game or something for a minute just to like not music for a second.
Yeah.
And there's surely some crazy people out there who would go home and make their own music after that. And I did sometimes, like I said, but again, it was nothing that I wanted to share with other humans. I guess I didn't feel super confident, but so it got to a point for me now where I'm like, this is the most I've ever tracked in years. It's the most I've ever mixed in years for myself. It's the most I've ever like written. It's the most I've ever asked my friends, hey, listen to this, tell me what you think, not, hey, look what I made.
Yeah.
It's just beeps and boops and stuff like that. So it's been, it's been kind of that whole like technology thing has been kind of, I don't know, it's been up and down, I suppose.
Yeah, I would agree, man. And, you know, it is a little intimidating sometimes, I think, when you look at how many songs come out online every single day.
And thousands.
Dude, I mean, I will admit, I have days where I'm still, I feel as though I'm still trying to figure out what this all is. So, and maybe I could ask you about this. Maybe this will be a good transition. I have so many things I want to ask you, and I hope I can get through all of them in one day.
I'm not going to do it.
So, I've been really trying to figure out my new path. Personally, I like having the conflict of having other responsibilities that kind of fuel my drive to make music, you know. But nonetheless, I'm trying to sort of establish my position as a professional musician a little more solidly. And I've been thinking about looking into management. I talked to a manager recently and just trying to get an understanding of like where we are now. Like, what is it that a manager like yourself wants to see in order to, figure out and assess whether an artist is where they should be to take on management.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, one thing would be like if they have a couple songs in the million stream area, like that would be a positive thing. And I'm like, I'm definitely nowhere near that. And he's like, another thing is like if they sort of, if they're in a place where, like, a thing people often say is like if you have so much work that you literally are starting to get to where you actually can't manage it
you
yourself.
Just need someone's help.
Yeah. So things like that. And I'm not at those places. And sometimes when I'm looking around at the landscape and I'm seeing young, brand new budding artists who just started.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm in the 1 million stream area. But when I'm going to hit 6 million or something real soon or whatever. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but they just seem to understand the way that they are supposed to utilize all these tools to build their careers. And I will admit, I don't get it. I don't understand how to do it.
Yeah, dude. That is just right along with that whole like everyone's got access now type of thing, is that the University of YouTube is free, and here's the way that I look at it. Back in the day when, record labels were absolutely necessary for the success of an artist. I'm talking about like the days of, vinyl and you're singing into a horn or whatever.
Right.
Back in the day, like the medium at which people were consuming music was like one way, two ways. That's it. It was the radio. And if you were lucky, you had the record player or something like that. So the tools that you're using nowadays to consume and create are often the same. So everyone and their mom is on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all these things. Those are also tools to these young artists' success. Like, just because I'm listening to the radio back in the day doesn't mean that I understood how a radio works. You know what I mean? Or doesn't, I don't.
Production side.
Yeah,
all that,
like just because I have vinyl doesn't mean I know how it got pressed.
So in other words, just to interject, the same person who might be consuming an artist might also be making a video with their kid
Absolutely.
about their day.
The way that, and COVID, I think, played a big part into it as well. I mean, it was already kind of underway, but like there's people creating just content period now who never would have created content period 5 years ago, or before COVID even, or 10 years ago when social media was like really taking off and stuff like that, and in a different kind of way. So yeah, I mean, the fact that like, so we have kids all the time in class TikToking, doing the TikTok dances, doing videos on TikTok, not just consuming. And I think it's, like I said, it's kind of the same sort of vein of like, I'm on my phone I can consume the content, but wait, I can also make the content. So them being able to consume and make with the same tool is absolutely linked to their understanding and how to be successful at it.
Wow.
You know what
I've
I'm
never thought about this before.
Yeah. So like if just again, my wife says I give too many examples, but if we go to a concert together, right, and we see this band play, or I'm watching you sit here in this chair and play your mandolin or something like that, that doesn't necessarily give me the immediate understanding on how to do the same thing. But nowadays, it absolutely does. When the basic DAW that we teach on is called Soundtrap. And it's free to use, it's online. So that means that we can be in completely different countries and be making in time, up to date changes. When I click save, you see it. And when you click save, I see it. And we can do that together. It's free, but most of what Soundtrap revolves around is drag and drop loops from Splice. So all kids know how to drag and drop. Mm-hmm. Most kids know how to copy and paste because they do it for their English papers. You know, these are skills that they already have an understanding of, and we just apply it to music. And so you just drag and drop a drum loop, you drag and drop some piano. Now it's not necessarily original creation, but it's original arrangement in a way. It's taking, how can we take these 5,000 loops that everyone else has access to and make something cool and different than everyone else has made, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, these skills, I mean, also like, I don't know if you know, but in schools now, a lot of schools are like 1-to-1 with technology, meaning every kid has a school issued laptop. There's no more handwriting. What? I remember when they started taking cursive away, and everyone was like, everyone needs cursive. You know, no one writes in cursive anymore except for like my grandmother. And that's like calligraphic. Yeah. So yeah, these tools are they have them already. So when it comes to music, they know the skills, they know how to use the tools. So that's why it's so accessible, because a laptop and a MIDI controller, you don't even need a MIDI controller. I could get on Soundtrap, or I could get on Ableton or Pro Tools and figure it out and still make a song with nothing but a computer. I could sing into the laptop microphone if I wanted to. And that also too, tying into the previous question, what we were talking about, also like in the abundance of new music that comes out every day, quality is also, something that we talk about too, because there's this quality over quantity conversation that's been coming up as well in the circle about like, can you just pump shit out, or can you just like trickle some great songs out? And nowadays, I think there's a lot of folks out there who are just like pump, pump, pump. Let's just put stuff out there without really considering spending the time of even mixing it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's getting to a point, I think, where that stuff is happily consumed. There's a lot of music that the kids listen to now that you're like, the vocals are peaking on purpose. And that's what they like. That's what the consumer, these youth enjoy, that is because it sounds raw. It sounds, like they just did it in their garage. They just did it in their closet. And maybe somehow, I just got the chills, maybe somehow that relates them to the artist a little bit more, because we're all in the same position of, we just have a crummy school laptop and a $20 microphone, and then, then transitioning them from that into the studio, we have to kind of break some of them of like, no, we're in like a really nice recording studio. Like, let's take the time to develop this stuff. Let's take the time to like make this really quality. And
damn, man, you're really making me think a lot. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is the same sort of phenomenon that takes place with YouTube creators, for example, and the fact that like with certain podcasts, or there's this guy right now, I can't remember his name, but he's kind of making the rounds as this, he blew up using content creation to kind of support his entrepreneurship. And he was talking about content creation, his content creation schedules and stuff. He did a talk, maybe a TED talk or something I listened to about all that. And he noticed that when he would put in the effort and have the editors come in and like do the lighting and do a really well produced thing, it wouldn't perform as well as if he just sat at his computer talking into the camera and talking to people. And of course, that's well known on YouTube that like there can be some channel, some podcast who just is just a kid with his cell phone and he just makes shit every day.
Yep.
And he's got, you know, millions of viewers every day compared to some podcaster who puts a lot of effort into it and has really good graphics and all this stuff, and just it doesn't have soul to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because on the music side, I think I can see all that on the video side, on the sort of content creation side of artistry. On the music side, I think I have more resistance to it for some reason. Probably.
Are you a musician first?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that could be like that. I mean, that could be it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking when you were talking about real music too, I guess what was coming to mind for me was like, there's this pure idea in my head about music creation being more significant, more important, more priority than, say, the fame associated with it. Like you want to create something of value more than you want to reap the reward for it. I think that's what the idea of real music would be. And I think there's a part of me that with something like following popular trends on TikTok or making things for TikTok, making things for virality sake, I think that makes me question the caliber of the music for that reason.
Yeah, I think a little bit me too. It's just one of those things, I think, where it's just kind of what it is nowadays. There's artists whole getting signed off of songs they put on TikTok.
Yeah.
And there's artists who are making songs specifically for the platform too, because they know that I have literally like less than 2 seconds to hook you. So what can I do? What can I make that's going to immediately hook you musically? Now, you know, of course, video is, like you said, it's a different kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of where it all is nowadays is, you know, I am interested to see when the first full-length movie is going to be shot vertical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that could be a very real, you know, near future thing where, like, you know, cinema might change, not just for a blip. You know, I can't imagine going to a movie theater that has a vertical screen. Maybe someday.
Maybe.
But, you know, that's kind of where everything lives right now is for that 10 seconds to hook somebody, to capture something. Attention spans have like, in the sense of, you know, consuming, you know, attention songs have gotten shorter. I think, you know, like there's a lot of artists that I've been following lately that make songs that are like all less than 3 minutes.
Man, yeah, and it's that type of information, that type of thinking that, for me, it just starts to, it makes me reflect on the idea of the self and trying to be oneself. I mean, that's what the art shit seems to have always been about, you know, is like trying to do the thing that everybody warned you was the most important thing to do in life, was to try to pursue being yourself.
Right.
And then when your tendency is, well, I want, like for me, my tendency is to still write sort of more literary pieces of music, like longer songs that take longer than 3 minutes. And that's kind of, it's discouraged. It is obviously a bad strategy if what you want is to be circulated. But then there's this tricky thing where you hear people who love Taylor Swift. You know, they hear that she puts out a 10-minute song and they sort of congratulate her bravery for this 10-minute song. And I find myself in the middle of these two things, like looking at the most popular artists in the world, looking at the mass of all the most popular activities for artists in the world, and finding myself just like in between them, like determined to be myself, but still feeling like it's hard to really find where I belong in this whole picture.
Yeah. I try not to think about it too much.
Yeah.
You know, I try to, I suppose I just try to live in like making the music that sounds good at the time, right now, you know. So I think every song on my EP I'm working on is like 3.5 and under. And, and it didn't used to be that way. When I was doing my rock band stuff, I mean, we had 7-minute songs, like more than one. And so, yeah, I think it's just that thing, like you said. I think the pursuit of, being true to yourself is just the most important period, I think, as an artist or just as a person. Because, if you're doing things that you feel like other people are going to relate to just to do those things so that other people can relate to you, kind of thing, I think that's the wrong way to approach most things. I tend to, lately I've been kind of relating in a way a lot of the music I make and the creative things I do to like stand-up comedy or something like that, where it's just kind of like, that's just you on stage talking. And that's all that is. And that's like as self, I feel like, as you can get, because that's literally just you up there talking. Now, of course, I'm sure there's comedians who just like, you gotta work it out. You gotta go for laughs. Whether you think it's funny or a good joke or not, sometimes you just gotta, sometimes you just gotta write a song for somebody else because it's Songfinch. And sometimes you just have to do that sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think that for me, and what I try to tell the kids and even fellow artists and stuff like that is like, shit, does it sound good? Cool. That's all that you need to, if you think it sounds bad, you're probably right. I say that almost every day. Like, hey, Mr. Max, or my friend, hey, what do you think? Well, yeah, how do you want feedback? Do you want me to tell you as a consumer, as your friend? Like, are you just looking for me to listen to it or something like that? But yeah, most of the time, like, do you think it sounds good? Yeah, cool. If it's a minute, great. If it's 8 minutes, great. Because that's, it shouldn't be the point to like, oh, I'm trying to go viral. Oh, I'm trying to get a record deal. Like, that might be a career goal, but a personal goal, I don't think it should be.
Man, the more that I get to hear sort of your perspective, the more I feel like kind of kindred spirits we might be a little bit, and just like how much common ground there is. And I've often in conversations with other artists tried to notice some of the similarities, and especially the way that independent artistry is affecting the stand-up comedy world, which I think is kind of it's really making comedy blossom right now compared to, I think, music, where well, as we've described, a lot of people I think have run into the music community and been like, I can find a place here, and I want to find a place here.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy, I feel like it's almost like, I don't know, it's the light got really bright on like the most gifted in that craft, and like that craft kind of got more and more refined once these artists learned how to use all these tools to showcase their voice best.
And I think stand-up in particular has changed and then unchanged, I think, in the past few years. I think it went through, as a lot of things did, a incredibly thick filter over the past few years, probably 10 at most, for different movements, for different levels of viewership now. Like, more people can access your stuff, so that means more people can be offended. That means more people can fall in love with you. Like, there's, I think that, stand-up comedy in particular, and it relates a little bit to music, kind of took this weird, not like a hit, but like kind of, it survived, but it's got some scars afterwards. And I think music has kind of fallen into that as well over the past, for different reasons, mostly probably the accessibility. And like I said, more viewership and stuff, but I don't think music has taken a hit in any type of way, but it's definitely has is different now. Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird, I feel like I've tried to notice how music shifts, because I have to now, working with kids so often. Like, have you ever heard of Little Someone? Have you ever heard of Bobby whatever? I'm like, nope, but I should probably listen to him because you are, and I need to keep up. And so I've definitely noticed some change in those two industries in particular, I feel like, and I think we're kind of coming out of the tunnel in a way, and I think positive originality is coming to blossom right now. I think it is. I think that there was the whole technological transformation that the world has gone through over the past 20 to 30 years guided people, I think, to, oh, well, that person's famous, let me do like them. You know what I mean? And I think that is kind of going away. I think from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot more originality and independence succeed for a couple of different reasons, maybe, versus, hey, it sells, let's put that on.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, you sound just like so-and-so, signed, because you sound just like so-and-so. And I think in my opinion, kind of the slow crumbling of the record label, as I see it at least, and the slow upcomings of independent labels and independent artists supporting other independent artists, not just as like friends and homies, but like as like, hey, let's put some money behind this kind of thing. I think there has been a resurgence of a positive reception of the originality that's out there. There's a lot of really weird stuff that in certain genres, I've been seeing a lot of just like weird shit that it sounds good and is successful. And I'm excited for that.
I mean, I guess I'd have to agree to some degree. And there's some patterns I see that I'm like, interesting, and like I'm not as optimistic about. But I will admit, I do think that there's been a little bit of a rise of, I don't know what, true different talent, or like talent being rewarded, I think is what I've started to think that I'm noticing, instead of it just being like, I don't know, instead of it just being the sensation of something being viral in some kind of way or something. It's kind of like I feel like now again, people who have enough talent to produce things over a longer span of time than just 1 minute, I think are starting to be noticed. At least they're starting to pop up in my stuff, which I'm like, okay,
agreed.
Maybe that's a thing.
No, agreed. I think in that maybe what it boils down to is because the mediums in which people are consuming the content has also shortened. So that allows you to move on to the next thing quicker. There's not these, 3 or 5 minute videos or something that are getting passed around because they're viral now. It's the 20-second video, and you literally only get your 15 minutes of fame, and then you're just, oh, that was so last year. You know what I mean? Like, it was so 3 weeks ago.
I think too with that, it's sort of like, I don't know, somebody that comes to mind. Somebody like Billy Strings, for example. We talk about him all the time, it seems. Somebody like Billy Strings, and the way that he uses content to market himself. Of course, he's big enough now. It's not the same because he's been big for a minute. But whatever. The point is, somebody who might be new to him sees not only his interesting vibe as a creative person and his sort of like, hey, I'm bluegrass, but I'm also into weed kind of thing. They also see he's like really good at what he does.
Yes.
And you see that once and you're like, cool. But he's memorable enough to notice that if you see him 4 or 5 times in your algorithm,
wow,
you're kind of like, okay, this is good enough. This seems reliable enough that I can actually hit the little button.
And, I find myself, that's when I follow somebody typically is the 3rd or 4th or 5th video of the person that I've seen popped up, and I enjoy it. Like I don't follow every video I enjoy, or the creator of the video. I don't like every video I enjoy, but yeah, as I see, a comedian or a musician or just like a visual artist or something who's done, their thing pops up, a different video, a different thing pops up for me, a couple of times. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I want to see what else,
Exactly.
Just keep up with you. I want to keep up with
this wasn't like a one and done thing. This person has more than that.
I agree. I definitely have noticed kind of talent being more, it's got staying power. Talent has staying power versus, how many views you have, I suppose, on a thing. And that can, like I said, labels are signing music from artists from TikTok and stuff like that, because they have the millions of views on some videos. But when you go to that person's account, a lot of times, a lot of their videos have millions of likes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they
exactly.
have, because they also, hey, shoot, who doesn't love, yeah, you selling one album a ton is great and all, but hey, if you could sell 5 albums a ton, that's even better.
Even better.
That's even better. So let's sign that guy. Yeah, and I think that the trend will continue that way. I think that I don't foresee that this kind of just short form entertainment, lasting too much longer. I think it's not going to go anywhere for a while in any like big sense of the term, but like it's also just hard to imagine what comes next when it comes to like social media. It's hard to imagine. I feel like, the internet and social media in a way has kind of reached its climax, and, it's like at this tipping point. The whole cycle is kind of at this, it's made this full revolution, and the internet has really come into form. It's out of its adolescence. Social media is out of its, tweenness, and now it's like, fucking social media, and it's everywhere, and it's, it's what it is. It's a beast. And so, it's going to be interesting to see the survival of some things. What does survive 20 years from now? I mean, you think about 20 years ago, what was out there as far as like just what the entertainment landscape looked like. 20 years from now, there's going to be a similar difference, if not more. I mean, the way stuff changes nowadays, it's like,
For sure.
It's so insane. All the AI stuff happening now, and it's
The AI shit is probably the scariest piece
crazy.
that we haven't even touched on. I mean, I like the micro nano sort of minimizing of attention and all this crazy shit that has happened naturally with the internet. I think, yes, you're right. It reaches a point where it has to be met with balance. Like attention spans can't just get smaller and smaller and smaller forever. Like, yeah, exactly. Eventually, that's what it would be, like TikTok videos that are a half a second long. So, yes, I think eventually either outside of the internet or within it, there will be a shift back towards something that's more meaningful. And I think like economically, we're seeing that in different industries. Like I feel like I know a lot of people who since 2020 have gotten really interested in sort of more traditional things, like their attention to traditional or let's say lifestyle things like food or like hunting or their relationship with nature or spirituality. All these things kind of got bigger as the internet and their attention got smaller or something. So I think it balances in that way. The AI shit, we might be in trouble with that. That's like a whole different level in terms, and I'm probably not equipped to even offer many thoughts that you don't already have about it, but I'm legitimately concerned with our relationship with the arts with that in consideration.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting introduction that I've had, I suppose, with all the AI stuff. I'm not, I think that I'm not maybe as scared as some others are, because I think there is that inherent human to human relationship you have when a person creates art. I think that it's one of the most like, ancestral kind of just like Mother Nature's way of expressing itself kind of thing that there is. And I think that the AI thing, there's already been stories of like a record label signing an AI artist, and that did not work out very well. Because the AI as most AI things end up being, most like chatbots end up being, is it's taking its source from the internet and not from life. And so a lot of it just turns into like really terrible, it's just saying really mean things. and it's like, yep, another chatbot down. Can't use that one anymore. Sorry, everyone. Our apologies. That didn't go like we thought it would. So yeah, and of course it'll get more sophisticated and things like that. But, I think, like I said, I think that there's just kind of there's the beauty of, you know, the guy on stage telling the jokes or the girl with the piano singing the song. There is that like connection, and there's something about like, you know, there's something about just it's natural to us. I think the creation
Yeah.
thing is natural, and I think that the AI thing is gonna fall back more into being a tool to use also, and not necessarily the foundation of creation that it's kind of becoming. Like I know all the AI art thing was really big for a minute, and then, you know, people started posting like that it's just pulling from sources and rearranging it into something that's like new, which is mind-blowing first of all, but also, you know, it's not necessarily something that like I'm sure there's already, if you know, in the underground, the New York underbelly art scene, I'm sure there's some AI art gallery or something like that. If not already, it'll pop up of just like nothing but AI created art. But yeah, I think like the internet, like social media, I think it'll kind of get to this tipping point. It'll get to this point where like, okay, like we get it AI, but also like we want to go back to like beautiful people art stuff.
Yeah, I mean the novelty of it must wear off, and so I like thinking about that Drake and Weekend, you know, AI song that popped off. The reason it popped off was because it sounded like them, and because it was like an enjoyable song. But without that sort of established relationship with those artists, I don't think people would have given a shit about that song. You know, it had to sound like Drake in order for people to be impressed by it.
Right.
They won't be impressed by it the next time it sounds like Drake, probably. I mean, it might write another great song, but I guess one thing I'm thinking about is like, if they just put out 10 AI musicians that scientifically sound like how you would want an Americana band to sound like, or you would want a rapper to sound like, or these different things, we've proven like the AI knows that these are the right voices and that these are how they're supposed to sound.
Yeah.
That kind of takes away the surprise of the first time that you hear like, I don't know who, like Sierra Farrell or Shaky Graves or Alabama Shakes, like these artists that you hear them for the first time and you're like, oh, like that's what y'all came up with to do, and that's what y'all sound like. And the reason that's enjoyable is because it's people, and like you're projecting that onto them. You're comparing, you're like that's your relationship with another person,
right?
And I don't think when it's computerized in that way, or designed by a computer, I don't think it's going to have the same effect over the long term. But the productivity, one thing I think I worry about is like right now it seems like we're in a race for whoever can establish their name the widest. And if somebody like Drake can take an established name and then say, okay, well, take this, recreate things for it, then it's almost like celebrity can become like a factory output for products that just rake in money rather than, you know,
I think without AI, I think it already kind of got to that point. You know what I mean? I think, let's pump.
That's a good point.
Record labels aren't putting out nobodies; they're turning people into celebrities on purpose. You know what I mean? And so I think it is already there. But I agree though. Like there is gonna be a time, if we're not already like there or really close, that like, you know, maybe the AI artist won't be the one singing, but will be the one writing the songs. And then, you know, it's hard to, you know, you'll never know that an AI wrote it. And maybe the record label will just come up with some like, fake name for the AI song, you know, John Smith wrote this song, or whatever it might be. And people may never know, and they may never divulge that information. But, you know, and maybe it's like that. Maybe it'll get to a point, like we'll get to where it's, you know, whether it is AI or not, people will just enjoy it for enjoying its sake. You know what I mean? And maybe that will happen. Maybe it won't. Maybe, you know, maybe the AI thing won't end up working out for the arts industries and stuff like that. But maybe it will. And again, you know, 20 years from now, maybe that is where we're headed. Maybe it is where it's nothing but AI tools that are getting used to create stuff. And sure, it might be Taylor Swift actually singing the words, but those words are born out of, you know, a motherboard instead of, you know, life's experiences and stuff. And
could be.
We'll see, I guess. You know, it is still something to say for someone who can sing real good. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, they could be doing a cover. That's not even their words that they're singing. You know, I mean, shit, that's what it is mostly in the industry nowadays anyway. There's, 10 songwriters in a room working on a project together. And, there's something to say about that. But we'll see, I guess. That's a big old we'll see.
It
I
is.
feel like.
My buddy sent me something about all this morning, and I wish I could like speak in a more informed way. I mean, he sent me something that was like another podcast talking about some famous photographer who entered a photography contest using an AI produced image.
Wow.
And he said the reason, and he won, and he said the reason he did it was to see if this contest, which was put on by Sony,
Right.
if they were prepared to deal with AI art, if they knew the difference.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and he won.
That's
and
wild.
probably because he was famous, probably the image was great too, but anyway, the impact is a little unpredictable. Like that scenario never would have occurred to me. I didn't think about the idea of contests and magazines and these things that are perceived to be real or true, and how that can fool people.
They're
And
taking our jobs, that type of thing.
Yeah. So, and I just now I haven't thought about this, but like probably the character assassination efforts that could go on with with fake AI images now, like trying like
all the deep fake stuff.
Yeah,
dude. That's more what worries me is all of a sudden that's me on the news saying some terrible shit. Like I didn't hey everyone, that was not me.
And they're like, there's video of you.
No, it's not. That's not even. No, it's not. I don't look like.
He has 6 fingers. Yeah, you can see.
Look. His eye just. But I mean, it is getting to a point where it's like I just saw an ad by Warner Brothers or something, and it was nothing but Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and they've got a fake Arnold Schwarzenegger, like it's the real scenes and stuff like that, but they've got his mouth moving, like promoting whatever it is that Warner Brothers has going, or whatever it was. It was like a shot from Terminator and Kindergarten Cop, and a shot from whatever the one with Danny DeVito was, where they were like brothers or whatever.
Twins.
Yeah, there you go. And and it was like, wow, like the first time I watched it, I'm like, how did they? They probably did that. And that's probably the part that worries me the most. The art thing. I think that I guess we'll go back to we'll see. I think it's just I think like you said, the novelty of it all. I think that's very real right now. It seems like there's tons of hoopla about it because the future is here. I can write a whole English paper, but I didn't write it. Which I'm surprised the kids haven't really caught on to it yet at my school, but. Oh, we'll see.
We'll see.
Wow.
Well, so speaking of kindred spirits, I probably we're gonna run out of time soon, probably. One of my beliefs that remains is that live events still reign supreme in terms of musical sort of the camaraderie and the communal experience around music. One of my bucket list goals, I guess, is to establish a festival. You've been establishing festivals. You're doing these things. I would love to hear more about what you've already done and what you're planning on doing in Greensboro.
Sweet, yeah. So the first thing I really got into when I got out here was It used to be called a Kobe, and now it's Ace University, and it's basically it's been over the past few years. Before I got there, it was just revolving around community and celebrating Black excellence and, putting a big mass choir together and just getting everybody to come out and let's just all sing together. Let's all enjoy singing together and providing space and really uplifting very talented people. And it's kind of morphed over the years into kind of more of just overall cultural conference celebration kind of thing. So this past year for the festival, it was about a week long. We did a 3-on-3 basketball tournament with a drum line and food trucks and stuff, and there was music playing. And then we did we put on a presentation of The Wiz Jr., by the community theater in Greensboro. We also had like a fashion show. We had a whole day of conference at the Greensboro Cultural Center where we had a bunch of the rooms occupied by various like panels and conversations, and we had open mics. And we ended the year with a big like 3-hour performance at UNCG's theater that had, it was kind of like a bit of like an award show kind of thing. We were giving out like awards of excellence to various bands and singers and also dance companies and things. And so that's been a really cool event to be a part of. Coming from Austin, I tried to dive in, look for anything to be a part of, look for things to do. I helped work Folk Fest too last year, and made some good friends there. And so, yeah, I mean, the Ace University Spirit Week thing, that's been a really cool experience to be a part of. And it allows me to flex more in the organizational side of things. I'm like the logistics manager and athletic director. So I organize the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And then, for the rest of the festival, I help make sure, the tiny desk style room has all the gear they need, and that the open mic has the gear they need, and to make sure we've got all the right people in the right places and that type of stuff. So that's the one. And that's like a yearly thing, and it's free. It's, the Ace University is a nonprofit, so it's all kind of just by, similar to Nose for Nose, just like, good folks coming out and helping put on a cool thing. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I'm starting, this will be the first year of Little Big City Festival. It's a music and arts festival, and really the main objective is to have all the different genres, all different kinds of vendors, just like really eclectic mix of things happen all in the same place. And I think that's because, some people might feel some type of way about it, but I'm doing it anyway, where I coming from where I'm from, we got everything or something like that. Like I think so used to seeing whatever kind of genre I wanted to see. I was so used to like seeing comedy and music at the same time. I was so used to seeing, a metal band play. I mean, I was doing rock band shit at hip hop shows. Like there was, I think, more room for just mixing it up just to have fun. And so, when I got here, I kind of noticed that there is that type of stuff, but it's maybe not as much as, other people might like to see. I think that I'm guilty of it too. I mean, leaving Greensboro to go to other cities to do other stuff. And so I think having more things in Greensboro or in the whole triad, like more things for people to do that actually like it gives you a chance to discover something new or shake someone's hand you wouldn't typically shake. Like, you can get all the gospel music you want, but can you also hear a punk band right after? Can you also see an R&B artist right after that, and then stand-up comedy right after that, at the same time drinking a beer? I think that's kind of hard to find. And yeah, there's Folk Fest, but in my opinion, as soon as you say Folk Fest, that puts a thing in someone's head where a majority of what you're going to hear is folk music, and that can tend to either make people skeptical of going or draw a certain crowd or something like that. And my goal is really, like I said, to just like, is it good? Let's put it on. Like, if you sound good, get up there, go get them. And I think that that's really important. I think it's would be exciting for people. I think it's really important to have those types of events because especially over what we've all been going through the past few years, with the world shutting down and everybody getting so divided and things like that, and just the climate that we've all been living in for so long. I think it's really easy to like demonize other people just because there's one thing you might disagree on. If we disagree on a single point, that's it. I don't even want to know you. I don't want to be around you, type of thing. And I think we've gotten really deep into that hole. And so I think just having something like Little Big City Fest where, who knows who you might bump into, and everybody enjoys a good time. Okay, enough said. Let's just have a good time. Let's listen to some music. Let's have some good food, and let's just, let's show out. And, yeah, the way that I kind of treat it is like, I want this to not be, the other thing too is like, I don't want this to be a Greensboro festival. I want it to be a festival in Greensboro. What I have noticed is on a lot of the same bills are a lot of the same performers who are performing at a lot of the same places that they usually perform at, type of thing. And that's why I think that plays into the whole, like, well, let's get a folk band, let's get a bluegrass, let's get a hip hop, let's get R&B, let's get everybody, and just put them in front of different crowds, because that's good for them, and it's good for the people coming to the festival too, because you never know what you might like. There's, like I said earlier, there's always something to take from everything that you listen to, whether you do like it or not. You should be able to just recognize and congratulate talent. Like, just because you don't like country music, that girl can still sing. Like, she can still hit those notes. And just because you might not like hip hop, or what hip hop to a lot of people, I think, says to them, okay, so what? Was it fun? Was it entertaining? Did you like the bass? Get a little more, like, loosen up a little bit, everybody. Like, it's fine. Punk music is good. Hip hop is good. And that could be just like what I'm guilty of, is I listen to like everything. There's no kind of music that I turn away, really. I can, stand about 5 minutes of like just the genre of noise, but that it still gives me good ideas. Like, I like how he played that snare drum. I want to try that. He flipped it over and put a small little cymbal on the top of it and played that. That was cool. I'm gonna try that in the studio or something. So yeah, just taking the vibe of like putting something together that everyone can come to, that's vague enough for people to check out, but also cool enough for people to want to stay and come back next year.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like you tapped into something that is common around here, which is like, if you're going to do a thing, like, define it with very clear parameters.
You go
around
here
it.
then.
You do that, and
You
like
do that there.
limit it.
Right.
Put limitations on it.
Right,
and
right.
that's great for a lot of things. That's great if you're trying to start a business, or if you're trying to, like, I don't know, if you're asking for a loan, it's like, it's great for you to say exactly
even
what
just
it's
to
for.
get into performing, sure. Go to
Sure.
the coffee shop every week and do the open mic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with something as eclectic as what a music festival can be, which is what we see in so many of them, especially like the biggest ones, have the most variety. And there's no reason not to. And especially around here, like, I don't know why we don't have some more solutions to that same thing. I mean, we used to have Fuzz Fest here. Do you know about
No,
Fuzz
I
Fest?
haven't heard of that one.
We used to have Fuzz Fest in Winston-Salem, and it was more fuzz oriented, so it was more indie rock oriented. And I think the last year they did it, they tried a little bit to make it a little more eclectic, but not only did the festival not last, but it wasn't known for its eclectic features. It was more one vein.
Yeah, sure.
Most of them have been one vein in the Triad area, and it's great to have the jazz fests and the folk fests and the
blues
the
and
segmented ones.
Yep.
But I'm with you, man. I mean, I think that there's plenty of room to have something that is a little bit more of a mixed experience, and likewise, I think there is a subtle value to. Fact is, like, the internet has driven people into their little micro tribes against other people, and they're often, it seems, walking around in the day just reminding themselves how much they hate other people more so than they are like feeling unified to them. And I think the subtle focus on, like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity to just bond over music and food. You know, I think that's a beautiful thing.
And I'm trying to make it kind of the statement from the jump of like, there's something here for everybody to enjoy, and why not stick around for a little while and see what else there is? Because, I have noticed other festivals, like you're talking about Fuzz Fest, where you just got to get the thing started. And so you start as this thing, and then when you go to try to expand, a lot of times people might not be receptive to that, or, that might not work the way you thought. So I'm just like, from the jump, let's just make it as diverse as possible. Let's make it as, what's the word? It's just something that, well, there it went. Yeah, something for everybody to enjoy, accessible for everybody, and anybody can come. And, it's not necessarily like, I'm not advertising it as a family friendly festival, but yeah, it's for everybody. Like bring the kids, I'm not really advertising it as like let's just sit in the park and, eat our sandwich and listen to the band play type of thing. Like I want people to be walking around and mingling with each other and shopping at a variety of different vendors and trying, shoot, maybe you've never had like Indian food before, but get some, maybe, you're not big on trying like a vegan burger, but get one, you never know. That's kind of the whole like statement, I guess, or there's not a statement.
Yeah.
Just have fun.
Yeah. It sounds simpler
fun.
than a statement.
Yeah. Music and beer, whatever, music and a cocktail. Like that's good enough for me. So hopefully that's good enough for everybody else.
When is this festival?
It'll be October 8th. It's in Greensboro at the Borough Market and Bar. We'll have 2 stages. We'll have a smaller setup inside the bar, and then we're using their parking lot for all the vendors and like a second stage out back. And looking at it's from like 11 to 8 or so. So we're filling up all that time. The submissions are open right now. If you go to lbcfest.com and you're an artist or a vendor, again, any kind, any skill level, whatever, as long as it sounds good, like submit, and then it'll be like a little short review process. And the submissions close July 1st. So you got about a month or so, a little less than that. And again, any type of vendor or artist, painting, stand-up comedy, dancing, if you just want to like get up there and talk for a minute, if you got something cool to talk about, let's hear it. And we've got a lot of great talent already submitting, and I'm excited. It's very eclectic already. Like we've got punk bands signing up, we've got hip hop artists and R&B and some country going on. So
hell yeah,
man. It's actually I've been pleasantly surprised about. People, for never hearing of this before, for never like all I'm posting on Instagram right now is the logo, because I don't have I haven't signed up the artist yet. I haven't put the vendors list out and everything like that. They just know when and where, and that it's vague as hell looking. So, that's been really nice to see, like the kind of the feedback that I've been getting from a lot of people in the community. So I'm excited. Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. Well, so this episode will probably come out closer to it'll be a couple weeks, so we should probably either get a picture, or I'll get a picture from your Instagram or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And we can at least, like, when I put out a thing that was like, yo, we want artists on the podcast, we grew a little bit and like reached people in new communities.
That's awesome.
So I will, I probably don't have significantly more. I probably don't have more reach than you, actually. I probably have less, but we'll at least put it out to my audience.
I have 2 years of shaking hands reach. That's what I have.
Pretty much same. I've been doing the podcast for 1.5 years.
Nice.
So it's not been, and it's all digital, so it's not even shaking hands. It's like digital passing by.
Sure.
But we'll, hopefully help get a little bit of word out.
Thank you so much. Anything else, man. And you sign up.
I will, actually. I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, get signed up. Let the people know.
Yeah, definitely will. Well, shit, Max. I guess we're good.
Cool.
That was. I'm glad I didn't have to. I think we've almost gone for 2 hours, so I should probably let you go.
Okay.
It was a really fun conversation.
That was great,
though.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for hanging with me and Marble.
Yeah, you put me over here.
She's giving us this look that's like real sassy.
And the ears too. Yeah. Like I can hear you.
Well, Max, thank you for your time, man, for real.
Thank you for having me.
Great talking to you.
Alrighty.
All right.